Welcome back to Art with Oz, your front row seat to the stories behind the Indian art world and the trailblazers who define them, one conversation at a time. Today, I'm at India's premier art fair, India Art Fair, where I'll be talking to gallerists, artists, curators, collectors, the likes. I'm here with Jaya Asokan. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. India Art Fair turns 18 this year. In your tenure of 6 years, how has it matured beyond just getting bigger in size of the number of artists and galleries present here?
So I think for me, it's not just about scale. Yes, it has grown physically bigger, but I think it's also, the depth of what we do. So we introduced a design section, for instance, 3 years ago. To me, design was a very natural progression because we have craft at the fair and, design rests on a 2,000-year-old tradition of craft in the country. So it was a very natural progression to get into design. Institutions is strengthened. We have a whole new tent this year for institutions. So I think it's not only numbers, but more about consolidating and strengthening what we already do.
Early days versus now, which was more exciting, the scrappiness or the scale?
Well, the scrappiness is always more fun. I think ideating, building something, seeing your vision come true. And actually, this fair really is a testament to the work of the last 6 years and what the fair could be.
What's the biggest change you've seen in the last 6 years?
I think audiences. I think we have a much younger audience profile. We have a young collectors program that we started as well to build audiences, which is doing phenomenally well. And I think that younger people wanting to engage with artists their own age, their peer group, that's been a significant change in terms of demographic.
In the next 20 years, where do you see India Art Fair? Or more other, where do you want it to be?
I would love for it to get more local. So we did an edition in Hyderabad last year, and we did a lot of programming in smaller cities like Jodhpur and Ahmedabad. We also did Bombay. We did an institutional show in Bombay. So for me, it really is penetrating the country a little bit more, decentralizing Delhi and Bombay, because I think there's a lot of potential in our own country. And I think that somebody needs to expose and educate and take that forward. So that would definitely be something I'd be very excited about.
An excellent idea. So if you were to describe India Art Fair 2026 in one sentence, what would it be?
So I think curatorially strong, with a lot of emphasis on dialogue.
And now one word.
Wow, that's tough. Impactful. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on to Art with Us. I'm back with Ashwin Rajagopalan at Ashwita's. Something very interesting about your booth is that I cannot see a single label anywhere.
Of course.
Why is that?
Well, it is a theory because I always figure out how to execute my theories at art fairs. So we're here at an art fair. We're not at a museum exhibition. It's not a curated show. It is a very commercial, transactional experience. So when we have our client base, our collector base, or the artists have their collectors, fans, admirers, and so on, when there is recognizability of the artwork, then the conversation becomes quicker. And if you're a buyer, you know what you're looking at, right? So we feel, and this is just an approach, is it's easier for us to have conversations about something somebody recognizes and what they like rather than discovering it. I think discovery at an art fair isn't especially my interest, right? So coming from a very commercial point of view. So people do come to discover art, but our conversation with our collectors is to say that here's the artwork of artists that's in our program and we'd like you to look at it. You know what it is. So let's have a commercial conversation and sell something, as opposed to this is so-and-so, this is Tukral and Tagra, this is what they do, and then you learn. But when you're learning, you're not transacting. So this is my theory. It's worked well so far, but that's why we don't have labels.
Wouldn't that diminish the experience of newer artists with newer audiences?
So I think that's a valid point, but in this day and age, there is access to information way more than ever before. You follow our Instagram account, all these images are there, all the artists are there. So you become part of our community, right? So again, the reason why we don't have that much information at the book is we want you to come and find us on Instagram. Come to the Ashrita campus in Chennai. Experience things because it has to be experienced. Without that, you don't admire art, right? You come to the art fair, it is an experience. That's why it has aggregated so many people. So, as part of the experience, learn, grow your knowledge, discover, explore. And that doesn't happen when you give the answer on a label.
And what's your biggest piece of advice to new collectors coming to Ashwata's at India Art Fair this year?
So, for new collectors, that's what we say. We say explore, but talk to us or talk to an art advisor, talk to somebody who is in the experience and expertise of helping you think through art. Advisory is how much is it, what should I buy, what should I collect, what should I invest. That's different. But if you're looking at how to start collecting, you have to have conversations. You have to identify your center. What appeals to me? What makes me tick, right? So we work with the Madras School. So we advise people saying, this is the Madras School. We are sitting excavating a very large history. So be part of that journey. And so our clients are people who resonate with Madras or the Madras art movement. So then you tell a story, you build a narrative, you build a history, right? So that's how we navigate young collectors.
That's phenomenal. And India Art Fair, any art fair, has this artwork after artwork after artwork intensity.
Yes.
How do you build an eye amongst all of this?
So building an eye is through exposing yourself, but not to a very large variety, but specifically to certain artists again and again, over and over, right? So if you want to be an expert at MF Hussain, you have to see as many original works of his as possible. Train your eye. Training the eye and learning to see is very important, right? So that's what I would advise to start with. Keep looking, but know what to look at. You can look at everything, you learn nothing. But if you know what to look at, which booths to go to, which program to follow, which galleries advice to take, then your eye gets trained and then you start by it. But if you are a smart collector, buy what everybody is buying. Buy from the top 10, buy the top 10, your collection is built. There is no other formula, right? Don't buy what you like. That is a bad mistake because you then have a collection of what you like and nobody else likes. Because you like something, I like something. But if I buy what you like, then we have a conversation. But if I buy what I like, you buy what you like, then we just individuals and nobody.
There's no community.
There is no community. So collecting art is also building a collecting community. Building a community of Hussain fans, Raza fans, KNT fans, Raghava fans. So we have to do that.
Let's talk about your booth. Over here, what is your favorite work?
Well, I have no favorites because I have to sell everything. Attachment leads to suffering and so on and so forth. But we want to focus on the Madras School narrative. So we have split our booth into our modern program and our contemporary program. So our modern program looks clearly at masters from the 1960s and 70s with roots from the Government College of Arts and Crafts, as well as interactions with the Cholamandal Artist Village. So that is kind of like the melting point of Madras modern art. And our contemporary program does encourage Madras contemporary. We have 4 artists that we represent from the Madras School. And now we're moving a little more nationally with people like Tukral and Tagra and Raghava. And hopefully over the next few years, we expand our contemporary program.
If you had to describe your booth in one sentence, what would it be?
It is the best place to buy art at Ashrita.
And one word.
We have heart because you can't spell art without a H in front of it. So
I'm here with David Werner's James Green. It's a pleasure to have you on Art with Arts.
thank you.
So tell me, your first impressions of the booth. What was the curatorial vision behind your exhibition this year?
So we've brought a selection of our kind of wider program to India Art Fair, which was really us responding to our collectors and the institutions that we work with here in terms of artists that they've been following or collecting, but also as an opportunity to bring some other artists from our program that perhaps we haven't shown here before.
How do you find that balance between promoting your established artists and the new names?
Finding the balance is obviously the kind of critical thing to do. I think, of course, we're waiting more on our artists that already have a following, but you know, that has to be in conversation. And I think we found some interesting pairings between some of those artists that we're introducing and some of the ones that we're already showing here to hopefully make a very kind of cohesive presentation.
which artists are you spotlighting this year? And why these particular works of theirs?
Well, I mean, starting with the front of our booth, we have 3 works by Huma Barber, who's an artist that we brought to India for the first time last year, but actually already has a following here. She is South Asian background and has had many prominent shows in recent years, including recently at the Barbican and also at the Roof Commission at the Mex. So, thankfully, even though she's quite busy, she just opened a show in Paris at the Fondation Giacometti. She made 3 new works for us at the fair. So that was, a critical kind of grounding point. And to pair her with Michael Armitage and Chris Afili, who are 2 other artists who, even if they haven't shown in India so widely, have a huge following outside. And I think similarly to Huma, are kind of questioning the Western tradition in art history. Those 3 together felt like that would be a kind of symbiotic grouping, and that's what we presented at the front of the booth.
Can you take us to one of Huma's works?
So we're standing here with Voyager, which is a piece that is being shown for the first time here. Huma completed the sculpture last year in her studio in New York. It's, I was very excited that she wanted to make 2 new works out of her probably most celebrated medium, which is cork, or primarily cork. So you're looking at the torso of the figure here is carved in cork and being painted in clay and other materials, with a head that she constructed both from clay, from polystyrene, and from found materials. So these are materials she's been using throughout her career, going back to the early 2000s. And and it's an interesting counterpoint to the brute we brought last year to the fair, which were her cast works. So in terms of her sculpture, Huma works across these assemblage and carved works which are unique. And then she's also working in cast bronze and cast iron. So having not bought any of the cork works last year, we were very excited to bring some in this medium this year as well.
And why does this particular work appeal to you?
So firstly, it's unusual for Huma to make a full body, full figure sculpture in this scale. Often at this scale, they are merely busts or kind of upper featured. So I think, and I'm impressed with the ability for her to carve in what is a difficult material to work with, but at that scale. I think it's sometimes can be easier for her to make full figure sculptures actually in a much larger piece of cork. So to have a full figure sculpture that is this size is quite a rare thing. Also, she's recently made a large body of works on paper, of which we have one around the corner, which has this quite dominant hooded figure, which has reminiscences of kind of Giotto's paintings, of halos, of possibly Islamic imagery. And this piece of metal that she found here for the hood reminds me of the works on paper. And I think it's always interesting to see, while the works on paper are not studies, how work that she's done maybe earlier in the year have informed things that she's then found from the sculpture and vice versa.
Could you describe India Art Fair in 1 sentence this year?
Energetic.
That's a word.
That's a word. I think there's a palpable energy that's kind of translating across the galleries and the collectors. And I feel a kind of an ecosystem that is as dynamic as anywhere that we go.
Thank you so much for coming on to
Thanks so
Art
much.
James.
Cheers.
With Mort Chatterjee at Chatterjee Law. Such a pleasure to have you back on Art.
Thanks, Azam.
Also, explain this work behind us.
So this is a work by Gagan Singh. He's a Delhi-based artist who we've been showing now for the last 10 years or so. His works range between the autobiographical and then these amazing, whimsical, absurd, erotic works which often extend many feet in span. They're looking and thinking about indigenous practices, classical art history, Western art. There's a whole range of influences that come together within his visual vocabulary. And for me, what's so exciting is the kind of range that you see in the practice.
One thing you can notice about this artwork is they use a negative space. How do you think that plays into the significance or meaning he's trying to portray?
Razan, that's a great question. The reality is that when you're in a booth like this, its tendency is to constrain works to maybe over-displayed. What the artist is forcing us to do in this work is actually create distance between the actual painted surface and then works which are going on around it. And I think he does that really successfully by creating these large borders. I've noticed over the last 2 days, visitors really getting in close and wanting to experience the work without any other disturbing going on. So I think in that sense, the negative space plays a really important part
So-
in enjoying the work.
The negative space forces you to get up close and personal with the work.
You could say that.
Yes.
So Azan, this is an amazing work by the artist Nikhil Chopra. And what you're looking at is a video and a paperwork. The video was initially filmed in 2007, and it's showing you the interaction of two actors. Those actors are Nikhil Chopra himself and his father, Naveen Chopra. And they are enacting a part of Julius Caesar, William Shakespeare's famous play. And the action is taking place in Raghunath Villa. Raghunath Villa is the ancestral home of Naveen Chopra in Jammu. And for Nikhil, that home has incredible poignancy, both in terms of his historical relationship to it, but also in present times, it no longer exists. 10 years after making the film, he returned to it, giving it a musical score, which is somewhat ominous, eerie, melancholic, and at the same time made this extraordinary drawing of the interior of Raghunath Villa. So these two works then function together as one composite work, thinking about the idea of loss, exile, but also of family and of love. And for me, it just encapsulates everything that I love about art, because it kind of works in so many different registers.
Two things that really appeal to me about this work are the use of, as you said, the ominous score and the narrative of Julius Caesar. How do these two factor into the significance you think the artist is trying to portray?
So, to be honest, I think Julius Caesar itself, perhaps it could have been another Shakespeare play, but for me, what it really talks about is the idea of amateur dramatics, which plays in very much into Nikhil's childhood, growing up with a father who was deeply indebted to the history of amateur theatre. And it was seeing his father enact roles that first gave, I think, Nikhil a love not only of theatre, but of performance, which then becomes so baked into his practice as an artist later.
And how do these two works complement each other?
So really, what's interesting for a viewer is to encounter first this large drawing, and then to say, well, hang on a second, why is this juxtaposed with the video? And it's really, we have a lovely text by the artist. It's once you read the text that one then relays into the other. It's this kind of shuttling between the two mediums as a viewer, which becomes exciting, especially within a context of an art fair where there's so much to see. Our job, in a sense, is to present works that for those few seconds that you have the time to rest, to actually kind of jump into and kind of explore the imagination of the artist.
Thank you for coming on Talk with Us. I'm here with Uday Jain of Dhumimal. It's a pleasure to have you back on Art with Us.
It's always good to chat with you.
Yes. So, introduce your booth this year to us.
So we're mostly showing pre-moderns to the moderns from the early 1900s to the 1980s. So let's say we're going to the first generation of independent India, and also some pre-independence movements like the Bengal school. So Jamni Roy, Silos Mukherjee, M.V. Dhurandhar, who's more from that, again, pre-independence period. Sushi Sarkar, who was one of the artists responsible for designing the national flag. V.S. Adulkar, who was the first Indian principal of J.J. School of Art. So this year we've also tried to, of course, we do have the Hussains and the Souzas, and in fact an exclusive Souza room and a Raza. But we are also trying to showcase these artists who've been historically important, but for whatever reason haven't been seen as much as they should have.
And personally, what is your favorite work in your booth this year?
This early Souza watercolor from 1940, which actually means that Souza was 16 when he did this work, and it's a landscape of Goa, which was his hometown. And I do think it's got that innocence, that simplicity, yet so much of power. So I feel, yeah, that has to be my favorite.
It's really different from his later work, especially the juxtaposition of this versus something like
Correct.
what's on the right.
Correct. So I think with Souza also, it was very evident of whatever was going on in his personal life would reflect in his work. So those early 40 watercolors are very sort of lyrical and happy, and they show Goa in a happy light. Whereas later on, as he's had broken relationships or he's moved cities, and you see a lot of turmoil, you sometimes see a lot of angry faces or a lot of that, yeah, those sort of emotions come in his work. So I think, yeah, with Souza, he was so expressive that whatever he was feeling inside would actually reflect in his artwork.
We are now by Hussain in his famous horse series. Could you please take us through the work and explain the significance of Hussain and his horses?
So I think the most important thing about Hussein's horses is movement, and you will always sort of find whatever position, whether it's a galloping horse or it's a any other sort of form of horse, there'll be a lot of movement in his works. And here, what you see is, of course, that yellow color and also the sun. And the different thing about this is that it's been done on textile, which is silk.
And what's the biggest difference to you from this India Art Fair to the last?
The India Art Fair now is getting more and more design oriented, and which, like, you do see a lot of different, apart from art, you see a lot of design, you see a lot of other elements being included as well. You see a lot of institutional projects, which earlier I think was restricted to galleries, but now you see more and more museums come in with solo projects, with focus projects. So I think that's a good thing.
I'm here with Aditya Ghosh. So, how has the quality of the art been? Has it changed? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better?
No, at least from my perspective, I think each year gets a little better because I see a lot more younger artists, lot of new artists experimenting with themes, experimenting with material, different sort of expression. So I find it every year gets a little better, and that's what keeps it so exciting. You and there is all kinds of different approaches to themes that are coming together, part performance, part material, installations, painting, sculpture, contemporary. Um, I find that really, really fascinating.
Any galleries you particularly like to serve?
And I've been coming back to crayon over the years, so clearly I'm a little biased. But uh, there are galleries from Berlin from where I've acquired some in the past. There are Indian galleries. There are small Indian galleries. Um, whether it is art and sep, whether it is crayon, whether of course the traditionally bigger ones like DAG, Vadera, etc. are anyway there. Um, I I uh, I've found it to be each time a sort of a learning experience. I really enjoy that.
As a collector, have you had any artworks that have spoken to you?
I think most of them, Azan. I don't collect art to invest. Everything that I surround myself with is the things that I can relate to, or something that speaks to me, or it's a pleasure to have them around. Um, like for instance, there is a very old Hussein, which is just a painting of a man, right, sitting, and that is, I don't know for how many years, has stayed right next to me at my writing table, for instance. Or there are others that have, uh, there is a very old Jamini Roy that I have, because when I first saw that as a child, I saw it as a print hanging in my parents' room, and then when I was older and I acquired it. So there's every one of them has a story around it, I think.
So, is it the significance of the work that's important for you, or the visuals of it? What's more important, or the aesthetics set?
I think the visual of it, right? I mean, now clearly, most of the significant works are significant because
Of that.
because of the visual,
Go on.
and there is a story behind it, etc. So many of the times it overlaps, but I'm not out there chasing a significant work. Like I said, if something appeals to me, if something talks to me, I feel like I want to be around it. I mean, you were talking about how you want to grow up and spend your entire life around this. My daughter says the same thing, where she's like, and I just want to be surrounded by art and painting and and so on and so forth, or sculpture or music or anything. And I think that's how I kind of approach.
Art is so important in our lives. Earlier, you mentioned Crayon as one of the galleries that you enjoyed being in. So, as a collector, what has drawn you to the Somnath Hora exhibition at Crayon here?
So Shomnath Hole is not only a significant artist of the 20th century, um, but also there is a deep-rooted. I'm a Bengali. A lot of his work is deep-rooted in 20th century Bengal, history of Bengal. So one can relate to it. There is a there is a there is a reason behind his work, and then there is the technique. Woodcuts, etc. So it's all of those things that appeal to me.
That's phenomenal. And closing out, what's one sentence you'd use to describe India Art Fair 2026?
I think it is one of the most enjoyable days that you can give to your senses, in the year.
I'm here with Ashish Shah, a designer come architect come artist. It's such a pleasure to have you on Art with Us. So tell me, do you consider yourself more of an architect or more of an artist? And what field gets you more excited?
So I consider myself, I mean, I fit in the bracket. Actually, I don't fit in a bracket. Art is bracketless for me. And I think that creativity should not be confined into compartments. You can do multiple things in one lifetime. And you have to go with the flow and where your heart takes you.
Got it. So abandoned titles in that sense for architects or artists.
Basically, abandoned titles.
Live art is it?
Yeah, and I think your generation is doing it so well. You can do a podcast, be a businessman, go play golf, do something else, and excel in everything at the same time, right?
When you look around you, this is some insane craftsmanship. How long do these pieces take you from a simple sketch to actual completion?
So this piece alone took a year and a half. And the name of the artisans and the number of hours are written here for a reason, so that we know that how long it takes to actually put a piece together in a village. And we don't displace the artisans from the village. We design these pieces with them. They make one by one like a piece of art. And then this whole thing takes a year and a half to make.
And many artists, they work for significance. They work for aesthetics. What do these artworks? What are these artworks to you? Are they more important for their significance or for their visual appeal?
I think it's a very interesting question, but I started this cell 10 years ago, more for research cell, to see what we can do with the crafts within the country. And then it led to me being a sculptor, being an artist, taking it forward. So that's how it worked. But I feel like what my goal is to make a statement that there are no brackets between art and design, just because I have functionality doesn't take it away from how good an artwork it is.
So, what statement would a work like this be making if you look at it?
I think it's a very potent work because if you notice, India is in the center
Lovely.
and the rest of the world is around it. Usually you see the world in a different way as the way they show it to us, where the GMT is the center. Now we put the IST in the center. So we choose our own center of the world is what this is saying.
That's phenomenal. And what is the significance of the cubes? Is that there for...
So I was working in Nagaland with cane craftspeople while I was working in Orissa with Dokra, this lost wax process of brass making. And I wanted to when I was looking at it, I was like, what if I made these in brass? And I could not find a way to make it in brass because it's hollow. So then I used these artists and work with them to create these cubes that, if you can see, they look like cane with cane workmanship around it.
Lovely. It is my pleasure to introduce the CEO and co-founder of Saffronol, Dinesh Vaziwana.
Hi, Azul.
Here with us on Art with Us.
Thank you.
So tell me, this Raja Ravi Verma, you're auctioning it in April. It's a lot of buzz around it. Why is it so important?
Well, if you look at it, it has got that dream. It is that one painting which is painted so finely that it's unparalleled with any other painting. In fact, also, it's a subject that's very lovable and likable for the most of the world, which is Yashoda and Krishna. But it's the gazes, the eyes. Here there's hope, there's dream. So it's hope and dream coming together, and it's probably one of the most special paintings. In fact, I think
it compares in a museum like the Mona Lisa, everyone would come to see it.
That's phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you. And a couple of questions about India Art Fair. Describe India Art Fair 2026 in one sentence.
I think discovery. You know, it's got a diversity in it, which has got different galleries. It's got design section. India is rocking. I think India is a country where people are taking attention to its culture. We have 5,000 years of it. And I think as you discover more of India, you get more and more interested in how diverse and exciting it is. So I'm very happy that there's more and more stuff going on there.
I'm here with Diora Haroni. It's such a pleasure to have you on Art with Ours.
Oh, pleasure.
So, explain the work behind this.
What you're looking at are two collages of Shiva and Parvati. Those collages are photographs based that I actually paint over them. It's those are two Chola bronzes that I find one of the most powerful sculptures I've ever seen in India. For me, this particular statue of Shiva is equivalent to the David of Michelangelo. The lightness, the gesture, the simplicity, the power, the divinity is oozing from this sculptor. And what I did with this one, so this is a collage of 6 pieces. You can see that those are jagged, almost allowing the viewer to put the divine together on its own. And the act of painting over it is almost for me an act of activating the divine. In our studio, we have those two prints above my desk. My studio director sits under Shiva, and I sit under my favorite Uma, Parvati. And we feel a sense of holiness and purpose to the work that he does.
I have two questions, Gira. So, number one, why Chola bronzes?
Why Chola bronzes? I don't have a particular answer to why Chola bronzes, but I can tell you that I started this particular series about 15 years ago, and I started with Greek and Roman sculptures. The series is called Redux, where I actually take the photographs of deities and reduce the amount of information to just the light that touches the sculpture. So, for instance, I have the photograph of Athena Nike from the Louvre, and you can barely see the wing. You can barely see her gesture, but you understand that this is Athena Nike. So there's several sculptures that I covered. I think I have about 20. They're all this size. When I started working on the Chola bronzes and on these two pieces, and I started doing the elimination process of doing reduction, I got to a point that I just couldn't reduce because I felt they were way too powerful for me. That I stopped short from reducing that. I find Chola bronzes like the highest form of sculptures.
Lovely. So, tell me, my second question. Across your works, there's this pretty evident black and gold color scheme. Does that hold any significance to you as an artist?
It's a very good question. In my work, there's not a lot of black and gold. In this particular booth, and the thing of the booth, which I'm using two materials here, which are gold and brass, as an ancient and contemporary materials, representing very much divinity. where the concept of the booth is the divine domesticated. So it's all about divinity. So hence the gold is very much prominent in this particular body of work.
That's phenomenal. I'm here with Satvik Verma, an art collector. It's such a pleasure to have you on Art
Thank
with
you,
Us.
Razan. Thank you for having me.
So tell me, how has India Art Fair changed from last year to this?
Well, for one, you see the size and the scale. There's one here is 135 galleries, which is the largest that it has ever had. So each year, progressively, it's getting bigger, better, and a little more inclusive, and a lot more reflective of the socio-political environment that we're living in. So it's just there's a freshness to the fair this year, and that's quite evident in the booths, the displays, a lot of repeat galleries, but no repetitive works.
That's great. And how has it matured beyond just size?
So, of course, I have spousal bias. And if you discount that spousal bias, I think it's matured in the sense of, one of the things that people would always say is that collecting art is an elite person's prerogative. It's expensive. It's, everything's very rich everything's very pricey. I think that's changed. There's art at every price point that's available at the fair. It's become a little more democratic, and it's definitely become a lot more inclusive. There's also been a lot of fabric that's come in, a lot of metalwork. So the traditional sense of art being a painting or a acrylic or a oil or a paperwork has changed into different mediums of art. And I think that is that's the best way to capture it. It's become inclusive.
That's great. Back to you as a collector. How have you built your eye over time?
You're being very generous by calling me a collector, but yes, I've been slowly inching towards collecting some works. I think, to be honest, I used to be a lot more colorful art kind of person, and over the years, my eye has matured to a little more monochromatic works, more on the medium than the output and the result. So if you see the black hole work of Anish Kapoor, it's just plain black, but it's the medium of that work that is so appealing and drawing. So I think, and to be honest, I think it's fairs like the India Art Fair that help you hone that skill, because the more you see art, the more you develop what it is that you like. It's like going to a restaurant. You keep going back to the same restaurant and you keep ordering the same dish, but every time the menu changes, you want to try something new and you get your new best dish. So, I think I've honed my taste and I've honed my skills.
And are there any particular galleries that you've liked this year?
Crayon art, always, of course. So, I've liked Ashwita's works. It's got some beautiful young artists from the South. In fact, all the artists that I've particularly been drawn to have been from the South. Shrishti has some great works of Dashrath Patel from 1950 that are quite beautiful. Veda art has some stuff. The international art, of course, is a great draw. Who would have thought that one would run into Ai Weiwei in New Delhi at the India Art Fair? It's always a very, very big draw. It's tough to zero in amongst 135 galleries. These are a few of my favorites in the last 1.5 days, and I'm sure I'll add to this in the next 2 days that I'm going to come back. But it's just phenomenal, the size, the public projects, what's on display, and particularly the institutional space. I don't know if you've seen the Sabyasachi booth. It's got some beautiful works. I've always loved Giora's designs, and he's back this year, and his creativity is just mind-blowing. So it's great to have some, as I said, many people who are repeating, but nothing that's repetitive.
It's phenomenal. Also, tell me, if you were to describe India Art Fair 2026 in one sentence, what would it be?
Phenomenally fresh and constantly evolving.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Art with Us. Stay tuned and we'll see you next time.